Three.
All right, I'm Bart Shaw. I'm here with Darwin today, and tell you a little about Darwin. He's Darwin Fortuna, AIA NCARB. He's a distinguished architect, originally from Jima Abajo, La Vega, Dominican Republic. He's made significant strides in the field of architecture, becoming the first Dominican-born architect to win the prestigious Young Architect Award in Washington, D.C. Fortuna is also a recipient of the 2022 AIA Film Challenge People's Choice Award for his impactful film, The Change We Seek. Fortuna graduated summa cum laude from the Boston Architectural College, where he was awarded the Henry Adams Medal and Certificate, the Dean Arcangelo Passeri Award, the Emerging Designer Award. He also holds high honors from North Shore Community College and completed coursework at the Universidad Autónoma, Autónoma de Santo Domingo. As a founding principal of Flo Architects, based in Massachusetts with an expanding presence in the Dominican Republic, Fortuna has led a multidisciplinary practice recognized for its innovative and inclusive approach. His leadership has helped the firm gain recognition and a substantial following, including over 20,000 active subscribers on their YouTube channel. Fortuna has also been a prominent figure in education, serving as an adjunct professor at Boston Architectural College, and inspiring students through various programs and workshops. He has taught architectural classes to preschool, middle school, and high school students, nurturing a passion for design and encouraging the next generation of architects. His professional service includes roles as a board member of the AIA Small Firm Exchange, where we met, for the state of Massachusetts, the Young Architect Representative for Massachusetts, and a licensing advisor for the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards, NCARB. He's also a dedicated advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion within the architectural profession, actively participating in workshops and roundtables to support minority-owned businesses. Fortuna's work has been featured in several publications, and he has received numerous accolades, including the Boston Magazine's Rising Star Award, the Latino Excellence Award from the Boston State House, and the Latino Excellence Award from the Boston State Senate. His commitment to community service and mentorship continues to inspire and shape the future of architecture. That is awesome.
Thank you. You did pretty well with the Spanish words right there, so that was good. That
Yeah,
was
I struggled a little bit, but yeah, being from Texas helps just this much.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's
Can't get me all the way.
good to connect, good to hear from your voice with your nice accent. So that's perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Well,
another
I,
time with the SFX. So yeah, that's where we connected. So thank you for
that's
taking the
right.
time
You've
to
been a very active and vocal member of the board, and I think everyone appreciates the energy and fervor you bring to everything that you do. Where did that start? Tell me about growing up in the Dominican Republic. And one of the things I've been thinking about lately is done some speaking and writing is how did I even know what an architect was? Like when did you find that out? How growing up in the Dominican Republic, do you have an awareness of when you discovered even that there were architects?
that's a really good question. I don't think he ever registered in my brain as I was growing up that field. I learned quicker about master builders and most of the residential homes there are done by master builders in the Dominican Republic. So architecture probably as a field or as a practice down on me at the last year of high school around that time when I was searching for careers and career paths that I could navigate. Um, and one of my best friends at that time, it was summer. We had just finished high school. Was at a computer looking, to register for school for college, and we were just chilling. I'm looking at him. I'm like, "What are you gonna do?" And he said, "Well, I'm gonna do architecture." Um, and and I asked him why, and he said, "Well, I've been really good at math, and I've been really really good at geometry, so I think I'm gonna do pretty well with that." So I looked at my grades across the 4 years of high school, and I was like, well, math was really good for me too, and geometry was really good for me too. And ironically, I never thought of all of my art classes and all the, European styles and things like that you like. Those things didn't dawn on me as architecture as I was taking
Right.
the class. And you will learn about all these famous Italian architects and things like that, but they never registered as a thing that you could do when you're taking the classes. You're like, well, I'm just in high school. I don't care about these things, and I don't care until they matter, right?
Yeah. Right.
And I looked at that and I asked him, what city are you gonna move to? And he said, well, I'm going to Santo Domingo, to the capital, which is about a 2 hour away from my hometown of La Vega, Jima Abajo, La Vega. And I'm like, well, sure, I'll enroll too. Can you create a username for me with my email and let's just enroll to that stuff. And I enrolled. One as a way of saying he was really smart, he still is. And I thought, well, we could probably succeed together at a new city with people that we don't know. And I always joke about the fact that within my hometown, everybody knew me very well, but they also knew my uprising or bringing mom. She wasn't my mom; she was my aunt. I was adopted by my aunt for a period of time, and because she was so well known, I would get good grades at school. So there was a myth that was kind of stemmed around the entire city. Like, well, he gets really good grades because his mom calls the teachers all the time and say, hey, what's
Yeah.
going on? So even family members, actually, I have another aunt that would actually say, like, yeah, of course, that's how you got good grades, because she would always be, and I didn't think of it that way, but she was very persuasive. So maybe there was some hint of truth to that. But I did work my butt off, so I don't know. So then I was like, with my uncertainties, let me go to the Dominican Republic, let me go to La Capital, the Santo Domingo, and let me go with this guy who is one of the brightest, right? He was actually the valedictorian of our class. He spoke and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Ironically, I wrote his speech. I was the one that
There you
wrote
go.
his speech. So I was very good at writing. So I wrote it, the speech. So we went there, and that's when architecture kind of began to materialize as a thing. The first few classes, introduction to architecture and things like that. And that's when I started taking it seriously, like looking at it like, whoa, I picked this career. I might as well do a great job at it. This is what I chose. And I was failing miserably, Bart. At the first few assignments, I didn't know architecture there. Although even here in the United States, the schools, they're different. There's different levels, right? So we all know about the Ivy Leagues, right? Like, and how they teach, um, which actually took a lot from the Bauhaus. A lot of Bauhaus style. Just like Chicago, the Institute of Technology took some Bauhaus styles. But the Dominican Republic maintained that, and the school I went to here in the United States, which is kind of moving forward, was very low level, kind of entry level architects, right? Like, it's a architect making machine. The Boston Architectural College is just an architect making machine, but it wouldn't really make a lot of capital D designer architects making machine. Like Columbia would. You would expect that someone that graduates from Columbia or Yale as an architect, it's gonna be a really good, or the GSD. You expect that because that's how they're infused. The Dominican Republic was
What do you think the difference is?
so just going back to the DR was kind of like an Ivy League style. And just so you know, La Universidad Autónoma de Santo Domingo is the oldest university in the entire continent.
Wow.
Entire continent. Older than Columbia, older than Harvard, older than all of those. Because it's a continent. America took the name of the continent, essentially. And that's why we always associate Americans as, we are all Americans, right? So Central American, South American, we're all Americans. So it should be the United States of North America. Like the North, it's just a little, it's not just America.
It was an ambitious label.
I know, right. So that's it. The schools there were very artistic. You would do a lot of things with your hands. There were a lot of plastic arts involved in there. I would say that the BAC, the Boston Architectural College, wasn't that artistic, right? So the thinking, when you go from high school to La Universidad Autónoma Santo Domingo, and there are other ones like that Pucamaima is another one, and Unive is another one that are kind of like that. Universidad Pedro Enrique Ureña is another one. There are like 3 really elite or 4 elite, but mine was the public one because that's all I could afford. It was a public university that you learn a lot about how to thrive in life because you have to learn how to fight. They do all kinds of fights and arguments and situations. So
We
relating
think
it to
about
you,
this a lot. I mean, you're an adjunct professor as well, and you think about the great modernists that are taught now. They were all educated in Bauhaus
that's
style,
right.
and maybe the important thing is really that you understand sort of the fundamentals of architecture more than you're sort of taught to dream of something new. Maybe that's a better foundation.
Yeah, I think you need both, right? And I was lucky to get a little bit of both, right? So the Dominican Republic was very artistic. I wasn't work. I only was there at a university for I think 3 years or so. So I was like almost in the middle of the program. It's a 5 year program. So so I only got that first beginning levels that was very artistic, and then here it was actually very easy. I graduated summa cum laude at the BAC, and it was actually very easy because when you come from a place where architecture is taught really heavy on Bauhaus style, but like really you understand a lot of concepts, intricate concepts. When you come here, at least at the BAC, you can show off. In fact, I was like showing off. My models were really well crafted.
Yeah,
Where
you had skills.
exactly, it's like, well, I can
Yeah.
show off, but I didn't speak English.
Oh,
So there we go, right? I didn't speak English. I was getting up to speed with English. I'm sure some of my teachers probably struggle with me in hindsight now, but I don't remember. So so yeah, so the BAC taught me a lot of like I got a lot of like workable skills, like meaning you could actually be billable as an individual, right? I was getting a lot of those skills. Revit, being able to produce content because the BAC requires you to work and study. In fact, you,
yeah.
you get credits as you move forward for both throughout the whole program. It's not like an internship that you need to do once. No, 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 no. Throughout the whole program. So you don't move to the next step, man, unless you've already completed your hours and you pass a portfolio that's focused on work. Like, what's the permit say? What's the wall section? What's the building section? What's
It's
going
good.
on?
Yeah.
So I walked out of there with a good understanding of how to make buildings. Was so I thought. I mean, I've been learning every day.
Sure.
So that was the difference. That was the difference. Like the struggle in the Dominican Republic, the educational setting, positions almost anyone who took it seriously as a profession there to succeed here and thrive here in the United States, I would say, with an advantage against a lot of people, to be honest.
Was that always the plan to go from there to here?
It became apparent as a plan as I was approaching that third year. My grandma had created a petition. I don't know how much you know of the immigration process, but
Nothing.
my grandmother had been here for quite some time. She was a United States citizen, so
Okay. That's
so
good.
she had to make a petition to get her children, my mom. So any unmarried that time, the laws changed, but at that time, any unmarried child, my mom hadn't been married. She actually had me and she never got married. So any unmarried children and their children, right? They would be able to come as a sponsorship
Right.
from my grandmother. So but the children of because my grandma made a petition for my mom, not for me. So if I became an adult, or I got married, that would have been another story. I couldn't come in there because they want to keep families together. That was the goal,
Right.
right? So
Right.
I was just approaching my 21st year birthday. So I was like, oh, I don't know. I turned 25 the same year that I got my green card. So that was 21, not 25, 21, the same year that I got my green card. So it was like pulling teeth, like, oh, what's the embassy
Yeah.
gonna say? What's the consular gonna say? What's I don't know, right? So it was like a 80-20. So I was taking my career seriously because if I had known that I was gonna come to the United States, I probably would have not done that, to be honest. Why? Because
Interesting.
because the thought was that I would have to start over, so I might as well pay attention once.
Right. So you
But
didn't need a student visa then. You already
no, no, I came here.
had a green card and you could come here anyway.
Yeah, I was a
Oh,
resident
that's great.
as soon as I landed. But
What's
I took
funny to me is like you talked about sort of the transition of going from your hometown to the capital. Like, there's some trepidation in that. But then you're like, then I went to America. Didn't speak English.
I know.
Tell me about that. What was that like?
Well, so here's the thing. If you could ever imagine a beautiful place, almost like a paradise, right? And you're living through hell every single day, right? If you could just fathom that thought of there's another place that's way better than all of this that you've always been dealing with. The transition happens easily. So the transition from hell to heaven is really, it's nothing abrupt about it, right? It's just like I just changed my car recently, and I don't miss my old car, right? Because the new car just makes you forget all of the bad stuff that didn't work about the previous car. So that transition was really, there was some, I would say it was about 70% blessings and 30% of a lot of struggles and fears, right? Not knowing the language, having to get a job. I got a job within a month of being here. Wendy's in Lafayette in Salem, Mass. So that was my first job. Super happy to be cashing out in dollars, right? Oh, wait a minute, we can buy stuff, right? I got my first pair of Nikes bought by myself, brought to you by Darwin. My first laptop, I could buy my laptop. Wow, this is good. I didn't have so a lot of things were really were drastic improvements. So that's why I said as you went from 0 to 1,000, right? Like very quickly. And also the thing is, in the United States, really, you do get out what you put in and some. So if you really work hard, you'd see the results. There's people in the Dominican Republic part that have been working their entire lives and they still don't own their house. Right. But working really hard. I think even here, as a regular working class citizen, if you're responsible and don't do anything silly, you could actually still buy a house. You could actually have a decent life, a very dignifying life. There, you could work your entire life and never get to that point. Never.
However, we shouldn't let this veer into politics, but however, I would say you did it at a time where you could work at Wendy's and pay your tuition.
Well, I didn't pay full my tuition. I'm still paying my tuition.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I took student loans. Yeah, it wasn't that far ago. It was 2010. All right. Remember, I'm still a kid. I just got the 40 under 40. So I'm still a kid.
Oh, that's right.
It wasn't to actually, yeah, things have changed drastically from 2010 to here, but because we were just still recovering from the 2008, right? 2009. So it was a good time.
Tuition's probably doubled since 2010.
That's right. So it was a good time to prepare. And I would say whenever things are like that, you got to prepare. Downturns are really good times to prepare for when things really grow, right? So I prepare, and now I've been ripping what I sow while I was studying and preparing for that. So
it's incredibly inspirational. I just, I hope we maintain that kind of opportunity for people, that it just doesn't get so out of hand. Cost wise, that it's just not accessible to folks anymore.
Yeah. I mean, we can look at it in many different ways. And, as an architect, I also play the developer role, but I also play the mentor role. And I do want to tell people that there is a bright future in the field for all of them. Right? Increasing that diversity is part of that. Knowing that there is a place for everyone. And we just have to watch everything carefully and make thorough decisions as we look at things. Always cross all your X's, do your own due diligence on everything, and at the end also put your heart in it too, because if your heart tells you, there are things that you're in right now that you thought were gonna be one way, and then they probably are not, right? In whichever way, right? So you have to evaluate it. And yesterday I was having a very important conversation, and we all have to have the ability of knowing that we may be wrong in everything that we've ever thought, right? So we may be wrong, and going into that, right? So a lot of what I thought the United States was going to be like is actually how the United States have actually been like.
Interesting.
Not much has changed. No, you have to work a lot. People don't have a whole lot of time, right? There's a lot of, things. Everything is very structured. Yeah, it's true. It's very structured. You don't renew your license, you get a registration bill, or you get pulled over. Like, things are really there's a system, there's a robust system, an infrastructure that already exists. That's almost hard to break, right? It's like, it's very, very structured. It doesn't matter who comes in and out of office. There's a lot already in place. It's almost impossible to wreck it, right? It's almost impossible to really wreck the whole system. So that's one thing. So and bringing it into architecture, coming from that humble background, owning a firm kind of became imminent too, So as I went through
So
the
what happened after you
BSc,
graduated? Did you go work for somebody when you graduated?
I did. So I was working as I was a student, CBT Architects, pretty well-known company here in Boston. Really good sized company. It's always on the edge of being a service architectural office that is aspiring to always move forward towards design architectural office, right? So they've always, and they made a lot of improvements. Now I saw that my walk up the ladder there was gonna be almost impossible, right?
Why was that? The structure of the company, or just what was the reason for that?
Well, let's start from the get-go. So I got hired there, and it was as an operations member. Operations meaning they had 7 stories, 7 floors, and I had to make sure every designer had what they needed whenever they needed, and that every fridge had coffee and milk for whenever they needed. And if anything broke, I would fix it because I was a student, right?
Right. Okay.
So there was
This was
another.
you were an intern. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it wasn't an internship. It was a permanent position
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and and there was a person that was there prior to me that was a couple semesters behind me. He was training me to take his position as running the operations group, and he will move on to a team. So he actually didn't move forward too much on his architectural studies, and he was I was stuck behind him because that's how they hired BAC students at that time. I don't know if they continue doing it that way, but that was the path to hire BAC students unless they already had worked at another office. And I hadn't worked at another office. Like I didn't have practical experience. So if you were a Columbia graduate or a RISD graduate, you would come into projects. They would never do operations.
Really?
They would never do operations. Never. No. So I learned more about that sophistications of schools as I was there. I was like, because even when they introduce people, oh, he's a Columbia graduate, he's a Yale graduate, he's at the GSD, and I was like, I don't know what the heck that means. I'm a BAC.
But did you find?
I'm a
So
BAC
when
guy. Yeah.
When I started at HKS, I cleaned out drawers. Did some similar stuff, moved partitions around them.
Yeah. I would
and stuff.
assemble
But
when they would move a whole team from one floor to the other. I would assemble all their cubicles.
I
I would
set
be
up the
doing.
office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
But
fun. I still do
found
that for my
actually
office.
I learned a lot just being there, and sort of being ignored in some ways is a great opportunity to learn. That's what I found. I don't know if you feel the
Absolutely,
same way.
Bart. So check this out. You're not a threat to any other designer in any way, shape, or form.
Yep.
People water you because they don't know how much you're gonna grow or not grow, and you just
But you can ask
absorb.
anybody a question, and they don't know they don't care who
So
you are because you're not
a couple
bothering them
things I
or being
picked
on their
up.
team, and they'll answer.
A couple things I picked up, just to your point. So my mentor, Mitch Bush, right now is a principal at CBT, right? He was just getting started, and he was the one that pulled me in a couple years, like a year after he had started at the office. He's a Columbia graduate, and he pulled me in. He was my mentor. He was an adjunct professor at the BAC, which we get very lucky because all of our adjunct professors are graduates from renowned schools that want to get that teaching kind of thing on the resume, right? So you get some of that stuff. So by infusion, by osmosis, you get some of it. So I was telling all the people that the desk you see that with the people you see that at a particular place where you work, depending on the office style and size, can dictate your future, your entire future. This person was sitting at the basement, basically at the lower level, but it was next to one that was almost moving to principal. And they looked at him, and also the CEO, David Knight here, looked at his graphic skills and communication skills and pulled him to do some presentations for them on something.
Yeah.
Dude, they moved him all the way to the 7th floor where the planning department is, and the guy's doing towers. Right? So sitting at the right place, being prepared for the right things. So I happened to sit at the 7th floor. Why? I have no idea. They didn't have any other desk anywhere else. So I would call him all the time to help me with my reviews and work for the school. And he would be infusing things like, listen, I'm working with SOM right now, and the same softwares that you use is the same softwares that they use. The same way that they work is the same way that I work, and the same way that we all work. So he started demystifying the fact that any firm and anyone could actually be big. Like anyone,
right.
Like I was looking at him, and he would talk to me about the psychology of how he puts his presentations together and how he goes about them. And I've been presenting. Listen, I took notes, and I still have the notes on my hard drive here on our server. And I check them out, and I laugh. I'm like, in everything. He taught me how to pick up red lines too, like be methodical. There's a joy in being satisfied after you finish all those red lines. Instant gratification. Be methodical. All that stuff. And he taught me a way of thinking. So I was lucky by the floor I was sitting at, and every design review at that office, because I was an operations person, everything was done. I had my checklist. I created my own systems, by the way, Bart, to know when things ended, at what floor they finished coffee quicker or not, and everything. Like I already had it all, like before AI. Right, the AI could do that right now for me. But but I would have been the first. I created a manual, the first manual that they ever had for how to run the operations department. You know why? I want to get the heck out of operations. So I want to, I want to, I want to
you
give
can
the
hand
job
it
to
off
somebody.
easier. As soon as you get somebody else, I'll hand them this manual, and I'm
And then
out.
my principal, which was the operation, the directors of operation, right? He and he's actually still is my mentor to this day, which is amazing. I'm meeting with him next week. He worked a lot on the projects with Perkins, with Norman Foster for the MFS museum, for the Museum of Fine Art, because CBT was the architect of record. They were working also at an addition, a very big addition to the West Palm Beach, the museum that they have there. The what's the name? The Norman, Morton Museum, I think is the name. Forgot, but it's a very, very well known museum in West Palm Beach, and I picked up a lot from him right there on the operations mindset, the way that he structured his day. Even he was one of the first ones always at the office. At Flo, we are one of the first ones. Like there are a lot of habits that I picked up,
Right.
right?
Do you also get, like, I get this a sense from what you're saying that you also, in learning from these folks, you were able to look at them and go, you know what, I can do this.
That's right. But as I looked at where they were and looked at how the system was created within the office, it was going to be too long for me. Just keep in mind the fact that I basically started over a career, right? So when most 21 years old were probably about to graduate, I was starting over at the BAC, right? So I was like, well, so if I'm ever going to become a principal, which I always wanted to, and I had that mindset for that office, I was like, I want to be part of the badass guys that make all of this happen. So it's not going to happen. It really isn't. My background doesn't work. Is there any other Latino principal here? No. Is there any associate principal Latino? No. Is it a senior? No. So I was like, this is not going to happen. It really is not going to happen. So I started also seeing the principals that were there, the ones that were almost about to retire, that were still hanging on to non-retirement. They still wanted to be relevant. And I was like, if it takes so long for someone to retire, the pipeline is really going to be difficult. So that time, who now is my ex-wife, got pregnant. And I was like, it's not going to happen. I'm out of here. So I got an offer, because, in architecture, there's basically two ways of getting a raise. Quit your job and go to another one. You always get a raise. Or wait 20 years. Wait
We can
a long,
also,
you can wait a long period of time and you're going to gain it. Or,
right.
there's a third one.
You threaten to quit is the other one. You get an offer and then threaten to quit
if
you don't get a raise. That seems to work.
Yeah, but no, but there's a third one, and it is actually becoming valuable to the company, to the point where you're part of the DNA of the company, right? So, and that can happen in a very well-established place. But if there's a place that still is ambiguous on where they want to go, and you can bring them where you think they should go, you can bring a lot of value. And there are a lot of gaps, right? This place had over 270 people. There are no gaps there, right?
Oh, wow.
So
yeah, pretty big.
They only needed an operations person to. And the guy above me couldn't move up into projects. Like, he wasn't really, because, it's a weird transition how it happens. So I got a really good raise at another company. And it wasn't a raise. It was a really good a bonus package, signing bonus and everything. I never heard of that stuff. So, and I was like, listen, but I was hesitant to answer it, Bart. And I didn't answer it on a timely fashion. I took my time. And they called me back and said, we understand a firm like CBT would actually counter offer. So we'll have another offer for you.
Oh,
they
wow.
Didn't have another counter offer, bro. There was not such thing as a counter offer.
They
I
thought you
was
were working it on the other end. Yeah,
I was hesitant
that's
because
funny.
I love working with Mitch and being close to Mitch. He's now a principal. I love being part of what David Nagahiro, which is now the CEO of the company, was onto. They invited me to all of these design creates and design meetings for towers that we're seeing now in Boston. The skyline of Boston they actually have changed that. One of them was done with Kelly Clark Perry, but it was a really nice piece. And I was like looking at that and I was like, it was like a 60% raise that I was gonna get at the other place. But I was like,
Wow.
am I willing to give that up? Because I love working with David Nagahiro and I love working at this office. And there was something about being able to bring a girlfriend to this place with 270 people. There was just something cool about that. It's like, and
Sure.
my
Yeah. Yeah.
mom, it's like the other office was like a 30 people office, and it was a design built type of company. It was completely different, differently structured. They only did healthcare, which I didn't really like actually, but I learned it by doing it. But I was like, listen, I gotta buy a house, I gotta do things, I gotta catch up. I have my wife at that time pregnant, right? It's
Yeah.
time to move on. So I had to move on. Tried it there, didn't like healthcare, but also didn't like the work environment. Tried it somewhere else that only did public work. That's when I was able to buy my first house at that time with the money I was able to get there. And that's where I met, one of my longtime forever friends, Julio. That was probably the only great thing about that office that I met Julio. And then we said, well, we got to start this thing. We have to do this. So we started as a design competitions crew. Let's do design competitions. So we started doing design competitions. Me and Julio hit it off, working together. Marcos was always part of the process, my principal partner. He was always part of the process in the background, but he was just a little more hesitant to give up the steady income, right? Like that
Yeah.
steady income. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if this thing's really gonna work. I don't know. All of us were hesitant, but Julio did it first. Actually, he quit that place where we worked together because he sucked. He really did. Um, and we ventured into this in 2017. I had one opportunity yet before moving full time into Flow, and it was to work for someone that is a very well known capital D design, capital A architect. So I was like, I'm never probably gonna work for Rem Koolhaas. I'm never gonna work for Bjark Ingel. This is as far as I go with this. Maybe no Moshe the Savdi either. It was a small shop that was doing really meaningful projects, right? A lot of
Yeah.
awards. They win an award every year, so they're always winning awards. So I did that. Realized they were really bad at running a business. I
Yeah.
learned that by looking at the structure, but I also learned that by looking at the hours I was working. So I was there until 7, 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and I was there at 6 a.m. every day. So, and there was a break point where I couldn't see my kids. There was a break point where I couldn't spend time with my ex-wife now, and I think that was a part of why she's an ex. Besides the part that she's also a high percentage Irish, it's very infuse anger there, but it was it was a demise of the whole thing. So and it was a perfect demise, right? So I quit. I quit that office, and I had 2 exams left. So I told Julio and Marcos, if I was only working for me and I could play with the time and I can grab books and study, those exams are gonna finish. So we incorporated it as a design studio that the visualizations in design competitions. There was nothing fun on the incorporation. It was an S corporation, but there was nothing architectural because it couldn't be, right? I respect the laws and regulations of the practice. And we did that. And that's I passed the exams exactly the same day. Well, I passed the exams, but I got my license the same day Eviana was born, my oldest child, my
Oh,
youngest
wow.
child. Yeah, my own youngest one. So I always remember that because I couldn't get
Are you saying
licensed.
you took a test the same day
No, I did I got because
you found out the results?
no, passing the exams doesn't make you a licensed architect. You know that, right? Passing the
Yeah.
exams, a lot of people get it confused. A lot of people, oh, I already graduated. You're not an architect, right? You pass
Sure.
exams, you're not an architect, even though you pass exams. The state in which you will practice will grant you a license. So the state of Massachusetts was taking forever to process applications. It was one guy with one finger doing it. So, you know what? I looked around and started calling neighboring, abutting jurisdictions like Maine, Connecticut, New Hampshire. And I was like, and I found out that Maine would process my application within 24 hours. The person processing it, her name was Bobby. I remember her. And I said, listen, my wife is due tomorrow. Actually, she's due tonight, but we'll see. We're not dilated yet. So we'll see. I'm going to send you all the paperwork. I promise. I'm going to call NCARB. They're going to send you the letter because I was NCARB. And I'm going to change my jurisdiction. Right. So I changed my jurisdiction. And the next day, ta-da, and I opened my email. Congratulations. No way. You have your license number. We only need you to send us a sample of your stamp to approve the stamp, and you're done. But I had a license number. And on my certificate, which I still have, it says the same date. It was on August 10th. So August 10th, 2018, I became a licensed architect. Got my first commercial contract for a dental office like about 3 weeks later, because I wasn't even engaging into getting those contracts because that would be actually illegal. You can't offer. And I want to say this to all of the people that watch this channel, because a lot of people that watch our SFX channel, Bart, are people that are about to jump off and do their own thing, or they are actually trying to practice, or they have a partner. And I want to mention this very clearly. If you have someone that's a stamping drawing behind the background and they're not the face of this, it's illegal. Don't do it.
That's right.
Highly illegal. It depends on your jurisdiction, but I would say when in doubt, don't do it. Right? So, because a lot of people have actually, I don't know if it happens to you, call me, hey, Darwin, I have this client. It's going to do this 20-unit building, and I want you to stamp it for me. And I'm like, this is the worst thing you could ask me. Like, this is the worst thing you could actually say to me right now. Like, I actually want to hang up, and you can call again and just say, hi, how you doing, Darwin? Like, I'm going to erase that because it's the worst thing you could possibly ever tell me to do, right? So, and I have learned that through seeing what happens when you do it wrong, too. Because I've seen other people that get blown up, and I'm like, nope, highly illegal. And it will undermine the profession. It will undermine the practice of architecture, which is against everything I fight for. Right. So sorry, the phones are going crazy today. So that's that. So I lost my track of thought on that end. But the point being is I got that license that day. Right. And then I immediately changed all of my marketing to Maine, and I changed all my website stuff to Maine. And then when I got the Massachusetts one, that's when I changed everything, changed the incorporation properly, and did all of that stuff. And out of my basement, that's where we started. 3 desks. Our first intern from China was a very talented guy, Lin Chuan Me. And that's when we created rules like no free work. Everybody gets paid. So our first intern was paid. Everybody has always been paid. So there were like certain things that we broke, like family will always be first. So if people here have an issue with family, we never frown upon that. We actually frown on someone that doesn't attend to their family first. So that project doesn't matter. The client, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Right.
So you say, well, the clients are the most important thing. The clients are not the most important. You don't have an office if you don't have a functioning staff. And you got to start with yourself too. So everything that we apply to ourselves, we also apply to our staff members.
So what kind of work did y'all get? How were you getting work?
So the first job I got was so that dental office. She put an ad on Craigslist, and I answered.
Oh wow!
I've never gone to Craigslist ever since.
Hey, take it where you can find it.
Yeah. Then I signed up to Home Advisor. It was the worst decision I'd ever made. In fact, they just settled for a lawsuit and sent me a check last week because they were doing illegal things. So that's what I'm telling you. There's a system in place that really does work. Not 100% of the time, but it does work. More than not. So and that was crazy because they were selling the same leads to 20 people, and you would call, and somebody already called, and it would just. Oh, wow. So one thing I would say, all the people that are watching this. You don't have to do what I say, right? It's my opinion. But signing up to lead generating platforms is horrible to the industry. It's horrible to you as a person. There's a lot of existential problems and inner problems with having to pay a lead generating entity to connect you with a customer, with a client. And this is just a lot. You're already at a disadvantage because one, you're probably not gonna get that project, and they're selling it to 20 people. It's like you going out on a date with someone that says she's dating 50 other people, and you're looking for someone to marry. And that
Isn't part of the problem is the folks that use the service. If you really, if you want an architect, why aren't you just calling architects?
You said that. You always say that, Bart, but I'll tell you, it's not that easy, right? It's not that easy. And also, I'll tell you why it's not that easy, right? So when people get into these projects, at least on the residential side, you want to make sure that they're gonna really take care of you. You put in your life money, your 401ks, your pension onto this home, onto this office renovation. You're putting a lot of money into that. So if you look at it from the client perspective, there's a lot of fear in that. And also the fact that they've been thinking about this idea probably for quite some time. When they actually begin to call an architect, they've been thinking about this for 2 to 3 years, probably. It's not something new. It's something that's been there, but the opportunity hadn't come because they've been taking care of a lot of other things. And then now the moment came. So they want to make the decision fast, which is horrible. It is horrible. But they also want to make sure that the decision is safe. So they go to, these companies are paying millions of dollars to Google to be at the top. When you write the word architect, you don't show up. Those people that have been paying for these services they get it. And they're also paying a bunch of other coders from China and India that are making sure they show up first. You don't have the bandwidth and the money and the time, Bart, to have Ibanya Shaw first. No way, right? You only get
I struggle with the idea that you would, it's sort of like, the contractor referral services. You realize the contractors are all paying the service. That's who they're referring people to. So why would you do that? Like, aren't you better off networking and finding somebody who hired a contractor that was decent?
That takes time. And I just told you, they're kind of rushing into the decision. There are also a lot of companies that are, like nonprofits and things like that have funds that expire within certain time, and they do it wrong. It's wrong. They should take their homework. They do their homework. They should do, their entities are already well established, like the MITs and Harvards, for instance, which I just interviewed with, and they have a system in place for how they procure people. They can't afford to make that mistake either, right? So they're
professional clients. So it's a difference.
But the individual clients,
most of our clients are one time, like it's their first building.
I know, me too. Most of ours are like that. One clients that they come from referrals, most of them too. But these systems have been created for them. Architects don't sit down to create a marketing campaign, with enough time, right? It's enough already. We're at a disadvantage in the way that the structures of the profession is. You are the one that has to do the work under his responsible control. So whenever you put that wet or dry seal on a drawing, you're taking care of every line. Every line means something to you. You don't have time to sit down now and go into the marketing, inner work. So these guys have a lot of bandwidth and money to make it easy for people to find them. So they find them first, right? Or buildings don't say our names everywhere they go. In fact, the building departments and the Zillow things don't say our name. It would be nice if every project that we ever designed on the deed as a record said, this addition was designed by Vanya Shaw of such and such, so they can find us. But you know why they don't do that? There's no money in that. They want to sell the house, but they haven't been able to find a way of actually monetizing that. It's like, well, no, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. So that's not there.
It shows up every once in a while because it's good marketing for them.
I push it. So I push it with all of my investor clients too. I say, listen, the fact that you're selling this property as an investment, telling them that Flo Design Architects designed it's gonna be a perk. Okay, so it's gonna add value to it somehow, inherent value, real value. There's value to it. It's not a random flip done by some random person. So that's good. But they haven't come up to that hasn't happened yet. It's not integral to the process. It would be beautiful, again, like I said, if every project that we ever designed carried it somewhere, even on the building record, on the property card, or some way that you always said, designed by such and such. Unless it was a renowned
Here's
architect that's historic, then that's another story, right?
well, one of the interesting things I think to point out in the conversation is that architects, the reason it's illegal to sign people's drawings and not that you haven't overseen is that as a professional, as an architect, we are personally liable for everything we put our seal on. It means that we have overseen it and we're validating that it's good. Marketing agencies, real estate agents, developers, none of those people are personally liable for anything they recommend or sell to anyone.
That's right.
But we are. Now, we suck at marketing. I agree. But we can say that to people, and none of these other people can. You know, you have a developer that'll charge the same fee an architect will and have zero liability. You know, and we do. And we buy the fact that we're registered professionals. We sign up for that. And we should make a bigger deal about that. I think that's a
No, it's true. It's true. You know, when people call me, I've gotten calls like that, and I also, you know, I'm actually I'm awestruck of how many non-licensed people are able to make it rain.
Yeah,
non-licensed people that just literally make clients come in. I don't know how they do it. Maybe they're lying. Maybe there's things that we don't do because we know better. So we're like, well, I'm not gonna say that, right? Like maybe they're, oh, I'm gonna design the greatest building on the world because they don't know. They can't really say that, right? I can't.
You say that, but if you were not liable, I think you would act differently. And I think if you are getting paid and it's about whipping out whatever you need to whip out to get to the next paycheck, you can, and you're not liable because your business, you know, everybody sues you, you just fold your business, go start another one. We can't do that.
You're right. So it places us, the way that the practice is set up itself, it places us at a disadvantage when it comes to someone non-licensed being able to really be out there, be really bold about all of these statements.
Oh, yeah.
And, it really is like they can say whatever, whenever, and they're not personally liable. The entity they have is the one, and then bye-bye, see you later. Almost like contractors. They only have a year, right? Like you're out. That's it. We're done, right? Wow. So
developers are for sure. Different LLC for everything, and you fold it if it doesn't work and move on.
Yeah, that's right. You dissolve the entity and it never happened. It just disappeared.
Yep.
So that puts us at that disadvantage. And that's kind of changing a little bit with the next generation of architects, people like you, Jeremiah, some of the SFX members, that we're kind of pushing marketing a little bit and putting ourselves out there a little bit more as anchors, you know, as mentors to even the communities, to the clients, to everyone. So that is changing. Okay. But it's a interesting process, you know, to see.
Going back to you and starting Flo, and you know, you start getting work, and what do you think as you started getting clients that came to you for work that you'd done? What do you think it was different about what you were doing for your clients that helped your business grow, especially during that period you were sort of a startup?
Well, the obvious things that every person that opens a firm does that bigger firms and other firms don't do. We're more hungry. We're really more hungry, right? Yeah. So because you're so hungry, I can meet you at the restaurant and we can talk about the project. I can meet you at the coffee shop. I can meet you at the golf club and we can talk about your project. I am there whenever you need me to. And they enjoy that. Some clients are like, oh my gosh, this is there were a lot of other things that we had, you know, I still had some of my student trials for some of the software. There were a lot of things that I had that I wasn't really, you know, then I turned into business ones. But there were a lot of things I could offer right at the beginning that I couldn't offer, you know, that other firms probably couldn't offer. And that's another part of the unfair advantage that some non-licensed folks have. They may even crack these softwares illegally, right? How do they even find them? Well, it's a laptop, throw it through the river, you're done. Well, it's out of the spines. Where is it to find? You know, it's nothing. We can't do anything wrong. So, but at that time, I was also crafting a plan early on, Bart, that would position me for fixing problems that other firms had that I saw. One, huge amount of waste in all of the other offices, waste of time, waste of paper, waste of everything. Since I come from a developing country, waste is a no. You don't do things like that, right? So I was like, where's the waste? One, if you don't have a clear contract with a client, you tend to keep reworking the same idea. You got to be able to limit it and make sure that they can sign off on that. So Flo developed a 4-step design process, which I've mentioned to you in our colloquial kind of conversations. And it's been working even for private, bigger clients too. It's just expanded. It's a little bit more than what it was. But ensuring that there is check and balances at each one of those steps, and that your staff members are trained early on. Julio Gutierrez knowing, hey, this wasn't in the contract. I'm not doing it. And being able to literally write on a big red email, all work is to be stopped as of now until we resolve this change order. That's it. So we've created very clear boundaries early on that we've been improving upon. So to reduce waste, you have to be very self-conscious of what it actually entails to develop a building from beginning to end. I have a background. My father is a master builder. I have a little bit of a background in construction from that, although I met my dad when I was 27, but that's another story. But I saw a lot of master builders around me, like I told you at the beginning. That's what I saw. So I would see all of these, like how they do it and all the waste too, and I would be like, something's just wrong here. The United States is the worst in construction waste, the worst. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
So, and I guess we're throwing some little political things there, but when I saw the post from Elon Musk saying that we need an agency on efficiency, I think that we need it regardless of what party does it. I don't care. I think an agency that focuses on why does it take so long to do all of these other things that you like? The process itself costs you so much money. The process to produce a thing costs more money than sometimes the thing itself. So that's a problem. So we also have been kind of streamlining that process, creating trainings that people hopefully watch. And I'm gonna make it personally that if people aren't watching the trainings, I'm not gonna say much about whether they get raised. I'm gonna be silent. I want to be advocate for them, but I can't be advocate for someone that doesn't get trained, that doesn't want to get trained. So when the conversations of raises and holiday Christmas bonuses come in, I'm gonna be like, well, they haven't watched any other things I've said, and they've never done anything I've said, and I'm gonna say it to them too, because I'm very vocal, and you know it. So I'm gonna. Oh, yeah. There's no secret, right? So because I don't want waste. I don't want to waste my time, right? So I want to make sure watch the trainings, follow the process, and going back to the client thing, clients just kept subscribing to some of those concepts of the efficiency, of the way that we train people, of the way that we've been evolving. And sadly, some clients don't make the cut anymore, and we can actually say no to some clients because the clients that got you to grow your firm are not the clients sometimes that are gonna get you to the next level. Just like the staff members that just started, like some of them may not make the cut, right? And you have to, they go on their own, or you have to ditch them yourself, right? So you have to make sure that every decision that you make as a firm owner is going to improve. This is a concept I learned as I got divorced. It's for the best interest of the child. So every decision that you make for your firm should be not for Ivania, or Bart Shaw, or, no. It's for the best interest of the child. And the child is the entity which is greater than you two, right? So always that decision when you hire shouldn't do it, desperately or anything like that. It should take your time. I learned that the hard way. I hired some bad people. So yeah. I was like, oh, I made a mistake. I did some bad things.
When you start out, I think, you're, like you said, you're taking things wherever you can get them from. But I think as you start to mature a little bit as a firm, you start thinking more about what it is you really want to do with your firm. And there's a progression from sort of, you just can't be all things to all people, right? At some point you decide, we're going to be this way, which means there's these things we're just not going to be good at. We're just not going to be able to take these things, or, we really want to do these things, then we have to, acquit ourselves in this way.
Oh, yeah. Yesterday, we have this thing called Flo Organization Day, FOD. It happens four times, once per quarter, every quarter. It's a day we don't pick up phones, we don't answer emails, and we work on the business itself as a team. It's incredible the things you're able to achieve if everyone at the office is working on all of those broken things that the office has that there's no time to fix. So that day, you do that. So I wanted to introduce that to you.
This sounds like a idea that would come from a guy who wrote an operations manual.
And you're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. So all the things. So yesterday we made some hard decisions, and it was that you know how you start your office with your competition work, your school work, right? So my website or website, not my website, Flo's website still has some of our competition work there. And yesterday now I'm detaching, I'm delegating. So the D for Darwin is not for Darwin, it's for delegation. I picked that up from Tim Molinga, one of our senior designers. So they printed the website and X out all the projects that were gonna go out of the website because they didn't represent who we were. And it is true. And this is I'll tell you, you cannot always just be forever a company that keeps the old skin, right? Just like a reptile need to get rid of the skin. But you can never always just be replacing the skin either. There should be a moment in which you come out and say, that eagle or reptile's got a new feather and got a new skin. And it is complete. And then you begin to disappear again and fix it again. You know what I mean? But there should be a moment. So yesterday they X'd out all of those things. Or Instagram is also getting ripped apart. All of my emotional attachment to all of those things just faded away because it is for the best interest of the child. Right?
Well, I think what's something that happens, I think, as you get older too, is you look back and you look at the things you've done, and the way you find a way forward is by figuring out what's meaningful about the things that you've done.
That's right.
So I'll ask you, like when you look back, especially the early time of your firm, kind of through your path, what did you find that was really meaningful that you think helps point you forward? What's really great about what you've done or project you've done or how you've interacted with somebody that you think about comes back to mind?
I mean, it's hard to point one thing that I find. It's just the process. The process itself has been very meaningful. And I always commend business owners of any business because I do think that we're a different breed as a person, as an individual, because you can't take all these things personally. Like the business and you learn through the business so much that you become an improved version of you. You deal with so many people, so many these different situations and contexts. So you really become very good, and that shows you then that that's possible for others, and then that's when the inclusion and diversity in the field of architecture kind of comes into flow as a legacy. I'm like, well, wow, we can improve, we can grow, and it's in the making of buildings, making of everything can actually grow and improve and be better. So when you see that, then you look at everything as like, wow, we can really do some really amazing things, and somebody else can take it on and move it forward, right? Because we're not eternals. So I do point out the fact that I've created really strong friendships and relationships with Marcos and Julio, which I always think of as like when all of this, I don't know, Tim Molinga, Jose Plates take Flo to another level, or someone else, right? Ramirez, some others take it to another level. Well, we'll look back and we'll be able to smoke a cigar and say, well, we did great. But at the end of the day, what really mattered is that we stay together, we care for each other, our families were well taken care of, and we left something that's bigger than us, that has its own life, right? So that whole thing is important. I can't think of a project. I always go back to one of my first projects of a couple that didn't have access to a bathroom and they had to go up and down the stairs. But I go back to that one because it was so meaningful for them to get that bathroom up at the second floor next to their bedroom, right? So it was just this little thing that really changed their entire lives. So they will always remember me. They would see me at the Stop and Shop, at the mall. They would see me and they're like, wow, Darwin, and to them, that was their jewel, right? So every project has a very, very, there is a why for every project, and you got to discover it and make sure that you're efficient. They're listening. And in our interview, you spoke a lot about that, listening and giving them something that they wouldn't do themselves. Always.
That's right.
Otherwise, what's the point for us? So, there are like a couple, there's always nuggets, Bart, but I am thankful to everything. I'm thankful to my divorce, as bad as it sounds, because I picked up a bunch of stuff. I picked up a bunch of, losing that old skin and getting that new skin as an individual. I redefining yourself, right? Whatever you've done before doesn't need to be things you can do forward, right? You can actually improve that, turn around, right? You can take a turn and say, we're no longer doing this. You learn some lessons. At Flo, we're good at residential architecture, multifamily residential architecture. We care about And the way I always describe it is because it touches the whole of life. You can be born at home, you could die at home, you can be taken care of at home, sick. You could go to the gym at home. You could cook for others at home like a restaurant would, right? You can have an entertainment center at home. You can educate. My kids are actually homeschooled. You can educate at home.
Yeah.
So that concept of living as a whole, right? You can even have a lab at home, right? So touches so much that if an architect gets really good at that, they can almost do anything, right? Like they get really good at understanding the machine for living that Le Corbusier left for us. You can really get good at a lot of other things. So we're actually running away from things that we don't care so much about. So 60-70% of our work is residential. There's a lot, you meet a lot of contractors. There's a fast cycle to it too. They happen a lot faster than a tower would. So the lessons are the feedback loop, the design feedback loop is faster. You can make an improved building every so often if you're conscious about the process and if you have a process in place that would track that. How did we do on the Hertz rating? How do we do on the energy rating? How was it actually, right? So you can actually do that faster than the other firms. And our impact, going back to small firms real quick, is bigger than most big firms. We can change neighborhood one home at a time. They don't touch that stuff. I could say that I have done over 2,000 projects in my last 7 years or so. I don't think there are a lot of firms that can say that they've done over 2,000 projects. From a little bathroom, to a garage, to an 18-unit 5-story building, which is one of the ones that are going up right now. Right? So that's small firm, and we want to remain small as an office too. I've learned that. I mean, I want to, but if the people that take it over later on don't want it to, so be it. But it would be also fun to see the fact that they could replicate the system that we've already created with that office man, with that same operations man. But yeah, so it's been fun talking to you, Bart. Yeah.
Well, you're fantastic, and I always enjoy talking to you. And I think one of the things, I didn't know you growing up, obviously, but I have a feeling that there are people in your hometown and people that met you along the way that knew you would be successful no matter what you did, because you have an energy. It's amazing you learned to speak English 10 years ago. You speak it more energetically and powerfully than I do. You just have I think, such a love for life, and it just adds, I think, a real strength to anything that you're doing. I think no matter what you've done, or decided to do, whatever your path was, you would have been successful. But what do you think when people come up to you and they say, "Oh, it's just amazing to see your success, that you've found success"? How do you react to that?
It's kind of awkward when people tell you things like that. One, because from my ex-wife, I learned I'm never done. Right? I'm a scaffolding.
Like getting better.
Again, I always have the rotting skin. So when people say, "Well, you've done all these things," I'm like, I'm not even nearly done, and I don't know. There's a lot more that we still could do, right? Because we always kind of try to improve it. But I do get a moment to flavor it, just like a coffee or a nice glass of wine. You would just enjoy it. And recently, I actually was fortunate enough to pick up an award at my local's town last month, and
Awesome.
be recognized in front of it was at a tournament, basketball tournament. It was filled up because there's not much to do at that town, so everybody saw it. My grandma was there, my mom was there, my uncle was there. So it was I wish my kids were there, but it was it felt surreal. Because actually, Bart, not everybody saw it. Not everybody saw it coming. Not many people saw it coming. So you could probably pick one or two people that kind of saw something interesting about me, but I wasn't peculiar. I wasn't normal. I'm not normal.
No, I know. That's why. I don't think
normal.
most people wake up with the energy level you have in the morning.
Yeah, I'm not normal. So I don't think a lot of people saw it. They would. I had a little nickname. It was like the crazy Tito. It was my nickname. So a loco Tito, right? So not much was expected from the loco Tito, right? So I don't think so. I don't, and I know why. I mean, things that aren't really conforming to the norm and don't follow a certain standard and protocol that don't fit in. you catalog, right? You label it, right? You alienate it, right? So I was like that, and I think Flow, that's another thing that makes Flow amazing, because we are different. We're really different, right? Some people, when people really experience it, they're like, these guys don't work the same way that everybody else works. They have a hard time subscribing to the process, because they're like, that's not how I'm used to work. Well, you know what? We're the expert. If you want us, to keep us. If you don't want us, to go on to somewhere else, you know? So accepting that you are different, you know?
Yeah.
So but it's fun now. Whenever I go to a club or anything in my hometown, they mention my name as soon as I walk in. I'm like, oh, that's that's weird. I don't want to be announced, you know. It's like, welcome to Darwin Fortuna, the architect. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm gonna be kidnapped tomorrow. Somebody's gonna think I'm a wealthy guy.
I don't know. I think I'm interpreting what you're saying, but I think the reason that you feel that way, I think part of optimism is, like you've done from what you've described throughout your career, is you look around the things that aren't working for people and you're looking for ways for them to be better. So when somebody says, you know, you're successful, you immediately flip to the things that you want to do to continue to make everything better.
That's right.
And I think that's fantastic.
That's right. It's a superpower, but it's a curse, right? We don't see space. We don't see the world the same way. You know, I actually would want to put it out there that I wish one day we get an architect president. But an
That would be
architect,
fantastic.
but an architect that's well rounded across every aspect of business, too, around every aspect of how things function. You know, those details. Because then we will be able to look at this whole thing from a macro, but also go all the way to the smallest detail and make sure that nothing gets left behind, right? Or at
Yeah.
least, you know, because right now a lot of it gets lost in translation, right? So it's like, well, wait a minute, you know, it would be a nice 4-year project if an architect was to take it on as a job.
All right.
Right? So
Darwin for president. Here we go.
thank you.
You're born
At least,
Dominican Republic. You're a naturalized citizen, right? So you can,
yeah, I wouldn't be
you're
able to
good.
become a president, but I can become, I think, mayor, governor, things like that. I wouldn't be able to
I thought
become.
you could. I thought you.
No, naturalized
Well,
wouldn't. I mean, that's probably why Elon Musk isn't running for president. He wasn't
maybe
born
so.
here. You know, remember Obama wasn't born here, so supposedly.
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah. So that's that. But Bart, I think this has been great. Unless there's
Well,
any
awesome.
last minute questions you may have for me, for you know, the audience and everybody. We've had a great time.
Yeah. No, it's been awesome. I mean, I can look at my list. Okay, I got one more for you.
Okay, last one.
Um, so it's a deep thought. You close your eyes, you know, whatever, you're relaxing somewhere on the beach, hopefully, and you start to imagine things that you might do that you think would really be incredible. Like, what is a thing that you think you would like to design, or something you would like to be involved in that you really think would just be something amazing?
I've thought about it before. It's not even for me. It's for the office, so that the office and everyone at the office can actually say we did this together, that they can believe in themselves. So it's two things. I would like to design an entire city,
Well,
an entire plan, an entire grid, if you will, of an entire city, all the way through, from beginning to end, all the aspects, all the elements, how it works, how it functions, you know, predicting for the future, knowing what we know already, using technology, leveraging AI, leveraging all of these different resources that we have that people didn't have before. And the other one, I've been playing a lot with the idea of a tower, for the same idea too. A tower could be actually its own microcosm, right? It is its own world. There's people
right,
that actually could live at the same tower that they work, right? So, and shop right at the first floor and park right
right,
there, and maybe have a AMC theater right there too. So that idea of, again, the whole of life being touched, every
right.
aspect of life being touched, it will be really delighting. And then a lot of people within the office will get the opportunity to work on those types of projects and look back at it and say, well, we did that, right? So, and that's all you keep with you, the memories and the stories that came along the way. But the process itself will be very fun, and engaging, and you would endeavor into, if it was to be done the way I see it, into a rabbit hole where a lot of your assumptions will be questioned. A lot of the things that you think that should be this way because that's how you see life. As you interview others that will live in those communities or study the users, you will learn that no. And I guess I can close on this one on the fact that that the United States as a country needs to be a little bit more humble, just like we architects are humble too to some degree, because we gotta accept the input from everywhere. You can't be too big to fail. You can't think of yourself as the almighty. There's a lot to be learned from all of these other places that we sometimes look down upon. So, I always say, why is it that there isn't a killing and shooting in Colombia at a school? Why? Why hasn't there ever been a shooting and killing of children in the Dominican Republic schools? I want that country more than I would want this, because this is what we've become here. So it is a process of becoming more humble and saying we can learn from all of these guys, right?
Right.
It's not a game of tariffs and fees and financials. It's not that, right? It's going back to the roots of the problems and understanding. There's just a lot to be learned, and I always go back to, we can go all the way to like outer space on a Blue Origin ship thing, and we can calculate the precision of landing by the millisecond, and we can solve a gun problem, and we can solve a food problem, and we can solve a housing problem, and we can solve an immigration problem. What the heck is this? What the heck is this? How many scientists did it take to do these things that we have? Why hasn't it been a task force that really is accountable for doing this as a science, as a job, as a full-time thing that you, every day you wake up, you just think about that problem and you fix it. It's not, I don't think it's that hard, Bart. I don't think
it's because you're thinking like an architect and not a politician. A politician thinks about how all the problems help them get elected. Maybe why an architect will never be a great politician is because we spend our lives in the real world talking to real people, trying to figure out how to solve problems and make their lives better.
That's right.
And generally, unfortunately, it's not what a lot of politics is about.
Sadly, yeah, and we couldn't not talk about politics right here, although we haven't talked about one opinion
or the
election
other.
But hey, it's coming in 2 weeks.
It's been awesome too. You're the great interviewer. It's been a privilege to interview you. You're fantastic.
Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one. Everybody, like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to follow Bart Shaw and all of us at the SFX. We'll talk. Bye-bye.
All right, see you later.